The moment the judge started laughing at the woman in the cheap gray suit, no one in the courtroom could have imagined that within an hour, he would be standing in front of her with shaking hands, trying to apologize. But that's exactly what happened. The morning at the county courthouse began like any other. Old wooden doors creaked open and shut, secretaries rushed through the hallways with stacks of files, and lawyers whispered nervously near the walls while waiting for the hearing to begin. Everyone was there for one reason: Judge Robert Hayes. People knew him all across the state. Cold, ruthless, arrogant. Some said he enjoyed humiliating people more than delivering justice, especially those he believed were beneath him. When the courtroom doors opened, the judge walked in confidently without even looking at the crowd. "Let's begin," he said dryly. The room instantly fell silent. And that was when the doors opened again. A woman stepped inside. She was black, around 50 years old, wearing a simple gray suit and an old coat. No bodyguards. No expensive jewelry. No designer handbag. She looked like an ordinary person who had accidentally wandered into a room full of elites. Several people exchanged confused glances. The judge looked up and smirked. "Ma'am, the public seating area opens later," he said sarcastically. The woman answered calmly, "I'm here by invitation." But the judge had already sensed an opportunity to entertain the room. "Oh, really?" He leaned back in his chair. "And who invited you?" "The Supreme Court." A few people chuckled quietly. The judge slowly removed his glasses. "The Supreme Court," he repeated with a grin. "Well, this is getting interesting." The laughter grew louder. Someone in the audience even pulled out a phone, expecting drama. But the woman never changed her expression. She simply stood near the door, calm and composed, as if she had experienced moments like this many times before. And somehow, that irritated the judge even more. He was used to people becoming nervous around him, explaining themselves, begging for respect. But this woman wasn't afraid. Not even a little. "What's your name?" he asked sharply. "Evelyn Carter." The judge flipped through his papers. "That's strange," he muttered. "I don't see your name listed among the attorneys." "That's because I'm not an attorney." More laughter. The judge glanced around proudly, enjoying the attention. "Well then, Ms. Carter," he said mockingly, "I believe you may have entered the wrong building." This time the laughter echoed through the courtroom. And then something unexpected happened. The woman smiled. Not nervously. Not angrily. It was the kind of smile that made it seem like she knew something nobody else did. And suddenly, a few people in the room stopped laughing. The judge narrowed his eyes. "Do you find something funny?" "No, Your Honor," she replied softly. "I just think people are often too quick to judge." The words hit him harder than he expected. He was used to being the most powerful person in every room. And now some unknown woman was speaking to him with complete confidence. "Listen," he snapped impatiently, "I don't have time for this circus." Security. But before he could finish, the courtroom doors opened again. A young court clerk hurried inside carrying a bright red folder. He looked nervous. "Your Honor, we just received an urgent notice." The judge sighed heavily. "Later." "No, sir, it concerns today's hearing." The room became quiet. The clerk walked forward and handed him the documents. At first, the judge looked annoyed. Then his expression changed. The smile disappeared from his face. He started reading faster. Then again. And again. As if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. A strange tension filled the courtroom. People began whispering to each other. "What's happening?" someone quietly asked. The judge slowly lifted his eyes toward the woman. For the first time since she entered the room, there was no arrogance in his face. Only shock. Only now did he notice how confidently she stood there, as though she had absolutely nothing to prove. The clerk swallowed nervously and began reading aloud. "By official order of the United States Supreme Court." The room froze. "The newly appointed chairwoman of the Supreme Judicial Council is..." He paused. "Ms. Evelyn Carter." Silence. Complete silence. Someone dropped a pen. Another person slowly lowered their phone. The judge stared at the woman as if he had just seen a ghost. Because only minutes earlier, he had publicly humiliated the person who had just become the most powerful authority in the entire judicial system. Nobody moved. Even the security guards stood frozen. Evelyn calmly walked forward. Her heels echoed against the wooden floor with every step. The judge opened his mouth to speak. "Miss Carter. I didn't know." But the words collapsed before he could finish them. For the first time in years, Judge Robert Hayes didn't know what to say. Evelyn stopped directly in front of him. Then she spoke quietly. "The most dangerous thing about power is believing that a person's worth is determined by their clothes, their skin color, or their status." Nobody in the room dared to move. "Today, you laughed at me, Your Honor," she continued calmly. "But the real problem isn't the laughter. The real problem is that you never once tried to see the human being standing in front of you." The judge lowered his eyes. And in that moment, he realized something. He hadn't just lost authority. He had lost respect. Evelyn slowly turned toward the courtroom. "Justice does not begin with laws," she said. "It begins with how we treat people when we believe they have no power." Several people looked away in shame. Because only minutes earlier, they had been laughing with the judge. Evelyn calmly took her seat at the front of the courtroom. And for the first time in his life, Judge Robert Hayes felt small. A week later, the story spread across the entire country. But people weren't talking about Evelyn Carter's appointment. They were talking about one sentence she spoke that day. "A person's true character is revealed by how they treat those who cannot fight back."